we're in this backdraft of QE and lowflation. And is it going to go back to the way it was, or is it going to be something different going forward? And so the markets are really having fun kind of going to different slots of the equity markets to try and find the right horse to bet on. Just for a little bit of background, I was a protege. I am a protege of Jeffrey Moore, who was my mentor, and he's known as the father of leading indicators. And so at ECRI, all the researchers there, many of them, including my co-founder Anirban Banerjee, we all studied with Jeffrey Moore. And the leading indicator approach, and you hear the words leading indicator all the time now. Everybody has their own leading indicator. There's different leading indexes. Countries have whatever, and so on and so forth. Now, the origin of this is probably, the origin is probably 100 years old. Okay, it used to be just gargantuan jungle variety swings in the economy, depression and expansion. It was crazy. I mean, as crazy as today sounds, it was more volatile. And with things like unemployment would be swinging huge. Now, there was an obvious question: what's going on? And what the researchers were finding, and this is my mentor's mentors, Wesley Mitchell, who helped found the National Bureau of Economic Research. What they saw was that in a free market economy, there's a very natural, inherent feature that there is an acceleration and a deceleration. Okay, so in free market oriented economies, if we are capitalists and we're not in a managed economy, we've got this free market dominated economy, we have ebbs and flows. Now, what becomes interesting is the turning points, the peaks and the troughs, and the ebb and the flow. And that's where leading indicators come in. They're designed to kind of help us track where we are in the cycle and what's the risk of it turning. And so that technology, the original leading indicators, are made over half a century ago. Some of them, they still work today, which is amazing. But we've done a lot of work. We've been researching and trying to figure this out because everybody's asking us the question, what's going to happen all the time, right? So now I've been doing this real time since 1990. And Dr. Moore beforehand had worked on the idea that there's cycles in growth, but it's more complicated than that. There's also separate cycles in inflation. They're related to growth, right? They have a relationship, but it's not perfect. It's pretty messy. There's long leads and lags for when inflation peaks and when growth peaks and vice versa. And then there's a third cycle, which is very important, which is cycles in jobs, in the job market. Again, it's closely related to growth, but it can have different turning points. It could peak or trough a little off of the overall business cycle. All of those elements, those characteristics that I just described, that inflation's a little out of sync with growth, or that jobs are a little out of sync with growth, they are all evident in full force today, right? And so in our monitoring of those three cycles, we're tracking them all very closely, and we don't require that they all match up. Sometimes they don't. And that's really confusing, but still just having a bead on where are we in the employment cycle, where are we in the inflation cycle, where are we in growth, gives us some anchoring in the midst of all this stuff that is going on. And so we're tracking all of those, and in every one of those big cycles, you can kind of drill in a little bit and look at manufacturing or services on growth. You could look at commodities or home price inflation and things like that. So we are monitorists with an eye. I mean, it's not that we watch money as an indicator, but we're monitorists with an eye. We're really just tracking where are we in these cycles. And so on growth, we're cycling down. You look at employment, growth is going down. You look at output is going down. You look at sales is going down, and even income is coming down. And those are the four indicators that define cycles in overall growth. And they're all cycling down. There's this kind of rule of thumb that people are used to. We have to see 2 quarters of negative GDP in order to say there's a recession. And that's pretty much the case, but it's a rule of thumb. And a statistic is not a recession. It's really a process where output, employment, income, and sales all feed on each other to the downside. That's your recession or slowdown. And then the recovery on the other side is when that flips. It kind of just flips almost in a binary way, and it becomes virtuous. Surprise demand begets more jobs and income and sales. Then it goes to the upside. So on growth, we're cycling down. I think people are familiar, probably that you've been speaking with and listening to you, that demand on the growth side of our economy in the United States has been weaker. The services have been holding up for the most part. And so the story there is that post-COVID, people kind of leave their home and they go out and they want more experiences and so on and so forth. So there's pent-up demand on the services side, and therefore that's adding up to an economy that's growing.
Right.
Now,
Sorry, revenge travel was the way that one of my guests just described it.
yes, absolutely. And we're still in it. I think in this summer, we're still going to get some more of that. Or maybe you won't travel quite as far. Maybe you'll keep it a little closer to home as the discretionary spending starts to get constrained. But the issue here is that most recessions, not all of them, but almost all of them, the lion's share of them, are created by swings in the goods sector of the economy. So that's just a concept when you think about cycles and growth. I'm oversimplifying here, but let's say that the US is services, manufactured goods, and construction. Okay. So the construction and the manufactured goods, those parts, that's the goods sector of the economy. The size of the cycle in that part of the economy is about 6 times larger than the amplitude or the size of the cycle in services. Kind of makes sense, right? You don't have a choice on school. You got to go to school or to the doctor. The output of the goods sector is still pretty darn large. It's not small. The employment there has gone down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that we all kind of viscerally feel, right? Not that many of us are working in manufacturing or construction, and the people we know, by and large, are probably more in these people-oriented, people-facing services jobs of some sort. But at the same time, because the size of the swings in the goods sector are so much bigger, the job losses during recessions, and we're going to get them, they're coming, right? They're focused in that goods sector. They're focused in the manufacturing and construction side. On the services side, you might have growth come down and kind of flatten out inside of a recession, but it doesn't necessarily go negative. So that's how you can see the restaurants full.
Interesting.
The concert is full or something, but the growth is negative. How does that happen, right? Something's wrong with the numbers. They're not counting it right. There's some other story. It's really just the nature of the size of the swings in the different sectors. And this goes through further to consumer spending, right? Because since a lot of our spending is on services, what you will see is that very often we enter recession with consumer spending growth around where it is now. Mm-hmm. And if anybody wants to get into the weeds on the data, the kind of mother of all indicators there would be the personal consumption expenditures growth, right? That's and that's the big statistic on all the things that we're buying as consumers. The more narrow measure would be retail sales growth, right? That's a little more goods oriented. Yeah. And there, I think we're going on a half a year of negative real retail sales growth. And, never say never, but we, in the past, have not seen that reading away from a recession. So there are lots of these like warning signs flipping off in different parts of the economy that are consistent with us going into recession, or maybe we're already
Or
in one.
being in one. Yeah.
Yeah.